Today, for just a few moments, we would like to speak about the secrecy of God. Our text is taken from Psalm 77 and verse 19, and it reads, "Thy way is in the sea, and thy path in the great waters, and thy footsteps are not known." Men tell us that there are few more impressive sights than that of a burial at sea. It is even more solemn and arresting than the last rites besides an earthly grave. There is the ceasing of the throbbing engines, the gathering of the hushed crowd upon the deck. There is the simple service, the lifting of the body, and then the plunge into the deep. And it is this element of silent secrecy, this hiding of unfathomable depths, which thrills and solemnizes and subdues. Something like that was in the poet's mind when he said of God, "Thy way is in the sea." Mingling with all his other thoughts was the thought that God has his unfathomable secrets. And it is upon the element of secrecy, so characteristic of the divine procedure, that I want to dwell upon. The best gifts are always at our hand. The brightest are never far away. All things needed for the song and crown are in the region where our hearts are beating. And yet they are there. They are not flaunting themselves. They are by our side, but never showy. There is no name inscribed upon their foreheads, nor blast of the trumpet on their lips. Think, for example, a gift of love. In the darkest spot on earth, some love is found. I doubt if there is a man so brutal and so base that no one loves him and thrills at his approach. And yet how silent and how secret love is, hiding himself away from human eye and speaking in a momentary glance. Our poets liken love to a flower. It is red as a rose and white as the lily. Yet love is not a flower of the field. Love is the treasure hidden in the field. And thousands cross the field and never see it, nor do they dream of the treasure hidden there until at last, in the appointed hour, passes the traveler who understands. It is always so with the love of man. It is always so with the love of God. God's love is here, and yet how secret and hidden it all is. How meaningless to the blinded, till Christ has come and shown his wounded side and led us to the glory of the cross. The same thing also is true of the gift of love. Life is the one impenetrable secret. We have it, and we thank God for it. And yet the wisest does not know what it is. It is not only the heaven of heavens. When looking up we say, "Thy footsteps are not known." It is not only where the sun is shining, and where beyond the sun there is the angels. The deepest mysteries are not in heaven. The deepest mysteries are not in hell. The deepest mysteries are here where we are, and know not what we are. Life looks at us in every human glance. Life speaks to us in every human voice. Life meets us riotously in the play of children. Life shines transfigured in the face of saints. And yet what is it? So near and yet so far, so strong and beautiful, and yet so frail, so evident that none can pass it by, so hidden that no human hand can reach it. It baffles science with all its mighty claims. It baffles philosophy with all its pondering. No thought can get it. Yet it is here where you are sitting and where I am sitting. God's footsteps are in the temple of my heart, and yet his footsteps are not known. Not with the sound of a bell does God arrive when our feet are at the turning of the waves. Over the silent sea the boat approaches, but the oars are muffled, and we don't hear it as it comes from the haven of the far away. Decked with the embroidery of common moments, the moments which are not common reach us. Wearing the aspects of our usual hours, our great hours of destiny arrive, and life shall never be the same again. We thought it was a common hand that touched us. We know now it was the hand of God. Sirs, life would be easy if provisional hours declared themselves. If they met us radiant and with an uplifting look and cried, I am one of thy great hours. But they never meet us in a guise like that, never betray their greatness by their bearing. We bear no sound of the approaching footsteps. Thy footsteps are not known. When Abraham rested at the door of Mamre, he saw 3 travelers drawing near to the tent. They were but wayfarers, thirsty and hungry, and he had no idea that they were angels. And it is always thus that the angel hours come, wearing the garments of the undistinguished, treading on the dust that follows them, worn with the everyday weariness of man. How many noisy hours have passed and left no impact upon our life? How many a little hour has been a seed, and if rooted deep and blossomed high as heaven? Yet it was borne upon the wind so noiselessly and fell so lightly that we never noticed it. And its roots are deep today, and its topmost branches are in the sky. You who are students of the Scriptures know that a favorite thought, the secrecy of God, was with Jesus Christ. It is not the whirlwind that the kingdom comes when it makes its lodging in the heart. Christ will never strive, nor cry, nor lift up his voice in the streets, those steep streets that lead into our soul. The kingdom comes as if a man should sleep, and the seed shall spring up, he knows not how. The kingdom comes just as the leaven comes, and who is so watchful as to see it rise? When Christ was born in the inn in Bethlehem, choruses of angels were singing in the sky. And when Christ comes again, there will be the sound of the trumpet, and a light so bright that every eye shall see him. But when Christ comes into the human soul, he comes with voice so soft that none can hear it except the ear on which the message falls. Christ does not ride in uproar to the soul. Christ steals in quiet secretly. The kingdom comes not with observation, and here the kingdom is the king. He knocks so clear that when he knocks, you hear it. But his knock is so soft that no one else can hear it. To everyone else, it is the ordinary footstep, and to everyone else, it is the ordinary hand. But to you, there is a wound and the print of the nails upon the feet. To you, it is Christ, and he is yours forever in infinite and redeeming love. Notable, too, is the element of secrecy in the life of Christ when he was here on earth. God hid him under the garb of poverty and set him amid the silence of the hills. When a man has a message which he burns to make known, you know the passion that rises in his heart. You know how the beckoning hand of California calls him, and how his restless till he reaches the capital. And when God had a message, he despised the capital and passed it by, and all the glories of it. And he sent his son into a secret place where the wind was fresh upon the hills. There he was born, and men were in the inn jesting and drinking, and knew not it was he. And kings were rioting, and scholars pondering, and armies marching in the imperial eagles. But not a whisper broke upon that riot, nor hushed the play of the children in the streets, nor fell on the legionnaires with a sense of awe as at a greater captain than their own. Wrapped in the secrecy of distant Galilee, moving obscurely amid obscurer villages, sinking when men would hail him king, craving for Bethany and crowded streets. That was the signet of the hand of God. That was the seal of the divine procedure. The footsteps of Jesus of Nazareth were the footsteps of God, and yet his footsteps were not known. So far, then, upon the spheres of evidence, and now a word or two about the other aspects. Can we discern the spiritual uses of this great element in God's procedure? I shall tell you how it seems to me to bear upon our triumph or our failure. There are things which are better for us that we should not hear, and God has the gracious strength to keep it a secret. How often have we said to someone, "How I wish I had told you that." We can never have the same thoughts again, since the one word was whispered in our ear, and we put it upon us, and it comes again, and it rises from the dead when we least wish it, and we are brought tower and lower, and we are ashamed just because someone could not keep a secret. There are times when there is strength in speech. There are times when there is strength in silence. There are times when there are sweet smell to tell. But life has been far harder since we told it. And that is why God is silent in his love and will not speak although our hearts are craving. And tomorrow we shall thank him for the silence that seems to be almost cruelty tonight. "My father," said Isaac, as they went up the hill, "the wood, but where then is the lamb?" Poor child, so wistful and so happy, he would have been cruelty to have told him that. And so with us who are but wistful children, speech may be cruel and secrecy may be kind. When we reach the hilltop we shall see, and seeing we shall understand. There is hope in the world, and there is hope in when we can say, God's footsteps are not known. The footsteps of sin and vice are always known. There is nothing obtrusive about them. They leave their print in filthiness and blood on every pavement and on every newspaper. And that is why 1,000 men are pessimists. For these reeking footsteps are before them, and they forgot that God is also there. Only his footsteps are not known. Let some drunken husband kill his wife tonight, and you shall hear about it in tomorrow's newspaper or on the TV tonight. And any scoundrel may have his doings published so that any child can hear about them. But thousands of homes are very happy yesterday, and wives were singing, and children were playing. But you shall read nothing in the papers or on TV about them. All that is of God, for love is of God. But then you see, God's footsteps are not known. And no one buys the newspaper to read that, and it is not at all notorious or flaunting. And what I say is that you must remember that sin is riotous, and God's way is in the still, small voice. Or hope will go, and hearts will be embittered, and faith will die into the cold of death. And then, in closing, the secrecy of God is surely meant by God to keep us faithful, the pattern of our everyday life. It is given to help us on our daily round. Rarely are we summoned so great deeds. To many of us, they never come at all. We are not beckoned along the shining to anything that might attention of the world. We make our journey by a quiet way, bosses that are commonplace, and duties that are ordinary duties, unlustered by any sparkle of glory. There are blessings in a life like that, and there are hardships too. We miss the excitement and the music and the cheering. On that road, we are a little disheartened and discouraged. Should recall the secrecy of God. Man is famous. His footsteps are well known. He is not nearer to God on any account. From the tiniest violet up to Jesus Christ, man moves in quiet and obtrusive paths. And if it is thus, he lavishes his beauty and makes his infinite sacrifice of love. We can never near him in our calling. We never hear him as he calls. His way is in the sea, and so let it be. Let live work where there is and freedom. Footsteps are known. Be God who has chosen to reveal thyself. So would I move apart and live unknown, and never seek the clamor of the show. For love is not there with gladness in its eyes, nor does the road to the kingdom lie that way. There may be someone who has heard this message that does not know Jesus Christ in the depths of their heart as their personal Lord and Savior. Below is a button that says, My Decision for Jesus. Click that button and Jesus Christ come into your life and make